Hello friends, my name is Skylant and this is going to be a top 10 upcoming PvP MMO list. And before we get into the list, I just want to say that none of these games are really better than any other. Really, I'm just ranking it based on how relevant they are to the title, MMO and PvP. PvP MMO. Many actually play pretty uniquely to anything on the list, or entirely uniquely to anything else that exists right now. In the end, all I can say is that I actually recommend all of these games. You're looking forward to them. I've played a lot of them, and some of them aren't quite in reach yet. But in the end, these are the ones that I picked that look the most promising in terms of having awesome, massively multiplayer online player versus player action. Check out the trailers, get into the alphas and betas if you can, and get hyped. Top 10 new PvP MMO? Let's do it. Coming in at number 10 is a game called Crush Online. Click the screen if you want to go and see my first impressions on it. Crush Online is a very recent game that I played. I don't even think it's fully out yet, but it seems like it's got a lot of potential wherever it launches from. See, it feels like a very compacted MMO. I mean, it even has like MOBA influence in the sense that like you literally can play a 3v3 MOBA instanced arena, but a lot of MMOs kind of have arenas. But this game, most specifically, has MOBA influence. In fact, even in its open world gameplay, it kind of has some MOBA influence. You do actually have a PvE element that is focused on PvP, as in you kind of send one giant creep over to a certain structure in the open world, and these open world instanced area things are also like, I mean, it's open world and you can completely traverse between them, but they're also small and arena sized. You actually do have loading screens similar to Albion Online, so I mean, it just feels like a compact and compartmentalized MMO. But it has just a few classes, just a few zones, and overall it's PvE and PvP is kind of splitting the content. But in time, I'm telling you, this game has some potential. Next up on the list, we have a game called Scrapes. Now, Scrapes is an MMO RTS in the truest sense. I know there's a lot of games out there that say and claim that they are MMO RTSs, but really, they aren't real-time, so they're just strategy games, they're just empire building. No, Scrapes is the first true real-time strategy MMO that I have seen, and it works like this. See, it's a sandbox MMO game. So, real world, everybody is out in the open world, farming, doing their thing, building their empire, but it's designed in a way so that everything is programmable. Like, literally, you are programming with code your own units, okay? So yeah, the main mechanic is programming your AI units, which do persist even if you log out. So they're constantly doing stuff. It's auto-playing. So the catch is that you're programming them. And then you build up your empires and you get more units and then you program those and continue to expand and you can actually conquer and fight. And it's kind of a crazy, weird idea. Don't know if it's gonna catch on. It might be niche, but in the end, many of these games are too. And I think this is just one of the most novel ideas that I have ever seen. So that's why it's on the list. Scrapes. Coming in at number 8, we have a game called Chronicles of Illyria, or Illyria, or whatever, you know. So this is a game that is a sandbox MMO PvP game that has a lot of structure to it. So I guess I can kind of say it's similar to Life is Feudal, or Gloria Victis, or Mortal Online. And there's a couple other games in this genre that are also coming out and have come out. But the difference is that this game has a severe added amount of structure and emphasis on sticking with guilds. And apparently you start out as a servant in a player-owned family and you work your way up the ranks and you gain renown or potentially become infamous, because there is sort of like this moral system and there's actually laws that are player owned and governed, and it just seems sort of very realistic in ways. But I think that even though in a sandbox game where normally you could do a lot of things, there's not too much weight with those decisions, but in a game like this, you are going to have weight to those decisions, and I think PvPers are going to really enjoy and appreciate that. And next on the list, which we actually mentioned at our number 8, was Gloria Victis. This is going to be the sandbox free-to-play MMO PvP game that I think everybody will be playing. Now, it started out really rough when I did my first impressions back in its like pre-alpha, but now the game has come a really long way, and it being the free-to-play counterpart to all these other games coming out, it looks really good, actually, and plays fantastically well, even compared to some of these $20 and $30 games. Because it's going to be free-to-play, that means this niche title is actually going to have more players than the others, and in a open world PvP MMO, massively multiplayer online, you want a massive amount of players to truly enjoy the game, and with Gloria Victis, you're getting that. It's completely solid, it's down to earth, like literally it is not high fantasy, there is no magic, but it has true aim, true trajectory with arrows. The PvP combat, the melee combat is feeling pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but where it's going is looking extremely exciting. Number 6 on the list is Warhammer 40k Eternal Crusade. And really, I think the only way to quickly explain this game is essentially PlanetSide in the Warhammer 40k universe. Right now, the game, if you can actually jump into the game, is small sort of arenas, but they plan on expanding it into that whole MMO atmosphere, into the PlanetSide-esque epicosity. So I'm really excited for that. Different factions that truly are actually different and not just kind of reskins like it sort of is in PlanetSide. Give us some really good, dirty, gritty sort of gameplay and combat and aesthetics, and I think it could make a really awesome sort of niche for itself in the MMO, especially, shooter market. Halfway on the list, we have a game called Das Tal, and I have to admit that Das Tal is actually the reason why I even came up with the idea of this list. It was one of the games that I saw that started the trend of these MMOBAs, these massively multiplayer online battle arenas. Das Tal is specifically taking elements and the game feel of mechanical MOBA like League of Legends, the prime example, and bringing it into the massively multiplayer space, and doing away with some of the MOBA mechanics like lanes and creeps, obviously, but then taking the MMO elements that we like from MMOs and merging them together. Das Tal definitely seems intuitive enough that I think new players are gonna have a lot of fun with, but then hardcore enough because it is a PvP open game, that I think the niche that is gonna fall in love with this game and consistently play it will enjoy this game and not go to somewhere else. Das Tal is really interesting in my opinion because of the simplistic mix and match system with weapons and different armors, and there is progression systems, but it's when you progress you actually get new abilities. It's not just grinding better gear. Of course, that's still part of the game, but it's not just that. It's not just the usual MMO grind, and it's not the just usual repetitiveness of MOBAs. You have a combination of the good stuff from those two genres, and hopefully that's how it's gonna turn out and finish. Currently it's still in alpha, but for my time playing, I still very much enjoyed it. Number 4 on the list is the game that I've played the most so far on this list, and it's a game called Albion Online. See, Albion Online is actually going to be cross-platform with mobile devices and your PC, and it's designed with that in mind. It does have questing, it's really more like repeatable grinds, but it does have a very competent PvE system with interesting dungeons that have pretty hardcore bosses, but what makes all of that elevated and more fun is the constant threat of PvP. So it does have an interesting and engaging PvE element, but it also has a very awesome PvP element. And it even has like a pseudo-competitive sort of guild versus guild, where when guilds actually fight and conquer territory, it works versus 5v5. So that's pretty cool. It's not just zerging around. However, there is open world ganking and shanking, all that sort of fun to be had. But if you do want to go solo, run it alone, like I've been doing, you could totally do that and PvE it up. You just gotta sneak around a little bit. But the game looks charming. It runs great on mobile devices as well. And even though it is a mobile MMO at heart, it still has tons of skill shots, leaps, and all sorts of craziness with their abilities. They have mixing and matching armor pieces and a really hardcore crafting system and economy. So Albion Online overall is very in-depth and very far in development, and it's actually going into its closed final beta this coming month. At number 3, admittedly, I haven't played it or really seen too much on it, but this is all merit on its previous incarnation, and that is the game called Camelot Unchained. Camelot, guys, huge game, huge PvP game that really ushered in and spearheaded the whole server versus server versus server, or realm, or just three-way battle royale between 3 different factions, kind of PvP. Big epic numbers and big fields, sieging against different castles and all sorts of different crazy abilities flying around. But I think by now we know the last game is pretty freaking decent. But there's other games that are doing what it did, maybe potentially better. We got Guild Wars 2, we have Elder Scrolls Online, PlanetSide. There's a number of games even coming out on this list that are doing something similar. So can Camelot Unchained do something new? Are they gonna just be kind of reliving nostalgia, just remixing an old formula, or are they adding something new, some new ingredients? Either way, last one was good enough that I think we can weight this top 10 list and put this game at number 3. Second on our list is a game called Crowfall, and this is actually the game that I'm personally most excited for. I think it's also the one that could potentially flop the hardest based on its hype. It just has so many weird mechanics to it that I can't even properly explain it in the 1 minute that I have to explain the game. See, it works in campaigns, kind of. Like there's these open sort of campaigns and environments that you can instance into, and then you fight over this PvE element, but it's like there's other players and other factions fighting over these resources and these monsters and mobs and raids or whatever. whatever. So it's like PvE, VP, VP, VP. I don't even, what? And then the character slash class system is so weird. Like it seems like MOBA characters put into an MMO and you pick, and I don't think there's really much customization with it, but with that, there's really interesting and very intricate abilities that you can have with a character-based system, and also really weird models like centaurs and stuff. Yeah, and also the combat is very action-based, and apparently there's gonna be voxel destruction and weird, like you could tunnel under walls and stuff. It just seems like it's got a lot of really crazy ideas, and the hype might be too big to live up to, but I want it to live up to the hype. And our number one for top 10 upcoming PvP MMO is a game called Star Citizen. Now, I really didn't want to put Star Citizen on here because it, like Crowfall, it's just so hype, dude. It's just got so much that, like, you know it's going to be a good game, but it can still flop. It can still really break your heart, and, you know, it might not live up to the hype. So Star Citizen, actually, I think is going to be a really interesting PvP game, of course, because of the sandbox nature, because of how much money's been poured into the game, how much potential. We saw EVE Online. We know EVE Online. The Star Citizen is going to be like, basically, EVE Online 2.0. It's going to be just like a more immersive EVE Online. But what excites me personally is that they are separating the PvE content, or much of it, into a single player focused game that you can purchase and buy and play, and that's its own separate entity. And then you have the rest of Star Citizen, the MMO Star Citizen, which is going to be full open PvP. You're going to have factions, you're going to have economy based stuffs, and all the hype, man. All the hype of Star Citizen is contained in both of these sort of versions of the game. So if you like the PvP, you like the MMO aspect, you have that, and you can focus on that with the dev team helping you out, really supporting its players. And I personally think that was a really smart idea. So yeah, that's why we got it at number one, plus the million other reasons why the game just looks fucking awesome. And that's the list. My personal list, yes, true, but hopefully you enjoyed it as well, and do enjoy these games when they finally arrive. Just want to end the video by saying that more than ever, we are seeing more competitive content being put into games. Yes, we're getting more PvP-oriented games, and yes, we're getting more esport-focused games, such as MOBAs and the emerging genre hero shooters, but to me, it's really exciting to see these design philosophies, like in FPSs and in MOBAs, these awesome spells, these interesting mechanics, these very intricate gameplay elements that generally we couldn't really put into the MMO space, now being implemented into MMOs, such as the ones on this list. So all in all, even if you're not excited for these particular games, wait until next year, and I'm sure we're gonna get a huge new batch of awesome games as well. I'm looking forward to it, hopefully you are too, and maybe you're also kind of looking forward to the next top 10 I do. Maybe? Yeah? Like and subscribe for that? I don't know. Anyways, my name is Skylant. Thank you so much for watching the video, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.